We're 5 days away from learning who will lead Canada for the next 4 years, and here at home, which candidates will win each local riding. Insiders from the top three parties have been joining us here on Windsor Morning every Wednesday through the federal campaign, and they're here again for our final chat prior to voting day. Today, we're going to be talking about where they're seeing momentum and where they need to gain more ground as their parties make their final pitches to voters. For the NDP, we have Taras Natyshak. He represented Essex as MPP from 2011 to 2022. For the Conservatives, we have Teshuba, a former candidate and now the Vice President of the Riding Association in Windsor-West. And for the Liberals, Alicia Higgison is the Vice President of the Riding Association in Windsor-Tecumseh-Lakeshore. She's also a Tecumseh Town councillor. Welcome back, everyone.
Good morning.
Well, first we're going to focus on Windsor-West. Brian Massey of the NDP held his seat for 22 years, but pundits believe the seat is in play and could flip to another party. Al, we're going to start with you since you're active in Windsor-West. I'm curious about what you've seen there. What's the likelihood the Conservatives can win Windsor-West?
Well, I think anybody who went to the Chamber of Commerce debate yesterday and saw Harb Gill in action and talked about how the Liberals should not get a fourth term and how Brian Massey should not get a 24th year. He had actually pointed out, count how many times Brian says we should do this, we have to do this. It was 20 times during the debate. He made his point. He was like, how come things haven't been done like that already then? How many more years do you need? And this is the type of messaging where you look at the track record of the Stephen Harper government that brought in the Gordie Howe International Crossing, saved the auto industry for the bailout. Things were affordable during the Harper administration. Look back, we've got a great track record. Harper certainly led a terrific Conservative government, minority and majority governments. And if people want to go back to success in Canada, affordability, you go to the Conservatives and you make sure that you vote Conservative. I mean, this is going to be a very interesting election, what people believe the ballot box question is. Is it the scary Trump tariffs, which seem to be tempered down, or is it about change? If it's about change, the Conservatives got a great chance and we have the momentum.
Alicia, what are you hearing about Windsor-West and the Liberals' chances there?
The Liberals know this is a seat we can win. An NDP collapse nationally doesn't leave much room for a message about strength and fighting to come across. And you've got voices, trusted voices in the community like Ann Jarvis, who are out talking to voters and traditional NDP voters about how their progressive voice is best parked with Richard Pollock out there and Mark Carney. Voters really need to look at the value of how their voice gets heard out there when their party is not part of party status. And as an Ontario Liberal, I think I have some things to say about that. And I think there really is a voice to play about how your voice actually gets heard when you have no members' bills and less speaking time and less support. And progressive voters are really looking for a place where their voice really matters. And I think that's with Richard Pollock and the Liberals.
Taras, what's your sense? Is Brian Massey vulnerable? Is his seat up for grabs?
22 years in public office, I don't think there is a more distinguished member who currently holds a seat and seeking re-election than Brian Massey. He has an incredible track record of advocating not only for his riding and his community, but the province and the country. Brian is front and center on every consequential issue that affects our region, whether it's job losses in our auto sector, whether it's border security, whether it's environmental protection, source water protection, the bringing about of a national urban park. Look, Brian is a machine. He is not only a machine as a legislator, but also as a candidate. He has an incredible amount of support, goodwill in this community, and it is earned. He does the hard work. He is the quintessential community representative. I can't imagine someone in Canada who is more deserved of re-election. And Brian also doesn't take that for granted. This is someone who I've campaigned with many, many times. He is always playing like he's 2 goals down in the third period. He is relentless. That matters in a campaign. I highly doubt that we'll see a change in the Windsor-West seat.
All right, we want to move to Essex next. Conservative Chris Lewis is the incumbent, but before he won in 2019, it was an NDP seat. Taras, I'm staying with you. You represented this riding provincially for the New Democrats. What has changed in the political landscape in Essex? Do you think voters have fundamentally shifted to the right?
No, what I think has changed from years gone by, look, we have to go back to the Eugene Whalen days and Susan Whalen days, and the other representatives that we stood on their shoulders. Typically, historically, Essex was would go with the general direction of the country. So they did elect Jeff Watson, who was a representative of the government, Susan Whalen also, and Eugene Whalen, of course, a cabinet minister. Tracy Ramsey represented a protest vote at that time. And I think that there is a sentiment in Essex County of protest. They like to see someone fighting against their government of the day. Unfortunately, Mr. Lewis has been less than visible during his tenure. I don't see him speaking on consequential issues. I don't see him down in Washington advocating against tariffs. I don't see him fighting for auto workers, or he's even during the COVID crisis, he was invisible. So I think incumbency will have its benefits in Essex, of course, but whether it's deserved or not is yet to be seen.
Al, what's your response to that?
I think Chris Lewis is a fantastic MP, and Jeff Watson before him had a great tenure in Essex. People love Chris Lewis. The guy is everywhere, door to door. He may not be showing up at things that aren't necessarily specific to his constituency because he values his time for door to door and engagement with Essex. This is the way people can measure their time as far as their campaign. But he was at the Essex Ontario agriculture debate, and he won that hands down. He knows every issue for his riding, agriculture being a key one, just his own family. I mean, Chris Lewis is absolutely stellar when it comes to the issues for Essex, advocating for the entire region. I mean, prior to having Conservative candidates, hopefully in Windsor-West, Windsor-Tecumseh soon, Chris Lewis had to, as Jeff Watson did, had to carry a region on his back representing everybody in the Conservative Party. So he also had to be familiar with all of Windsor and Windsor-Tecumseh-Lakeshore issues. Chris Lewis, rock solid in Essex. You drive by, you see all the signs. They love Chris Lewis, as they should. Absolutely great MP.
Alicia, how are the Liberals sort of responding to what's happening in Essex? We just met your candidate. He was here for the debate earlier. How do you navigate what's happening out there?
I think Taras was right to bring up the Whalen years and talking about what that means. I'm from Harrow's, my hometown, so I grew up in politics around Susan Whalen and Sandra Pupatello and these kinds of strong women in politics. And it's really hard to say what's appealing about the Conservative platform to Essex voters, considering the platform was only released about a day ago, even though they've been effectively campaigning for 2 years. And in that campaign, in that platform, there was almost no mention of Trump and tariffs. And Al, you basically kind of passed over it like it's a non-issue anymore. I don't think it's a non-issue for voters in Essex. I don't think it's agriculture and the skilled trades are a non-issue for people in Essex. And I think you've got a candidate like Chris Sutton, we just heard from, who's been 35 years in the skilled trades, who is a veteran, who actually, by the way, entered this race before the bump in the polls because he actually sees that there is a need for that kind of representation and that kind of voice, which is sadly missing in Essex right now.
I want to talk about Windsor-Tecumseh-Lakeshore. The incumbent there is Eric Kuzmarchuk. He's a Liberal. Alicia, staying with you. This is your home turf. Your party took this seat from the NDP in 2019, but the margin of victory in both elections were very thin. What's your sense of how close it is this time around?
An incumbent always has to step up to the door, knock on the door with their voting record to answer for. And I think a voting record of bringing $16 billion in investment to the region has served Eric Kuzmarchuk well in Windsor-Tecumseh-Lakeshore. And the doors have told us that. It's been great to knock out there and talk to the community members about what it's meant to have a voice in government. You saw Mark Carney down here standing at the foot of the Ambassador Bridge talking about supports for auto workers because you have a voice like Eric who's there in government talking to him about what it means to this region to have supports down here and what we really need. And I think that there is real value in that, not just in the dollars of investment, which is the most in any member for the whole entire country, but he's really built relationships here with skilled trades, with seniors and with schools, and he's brought an auto plant and lots of other investments here. We need those kinds of leadership styles here in Windsor-Essex. We need them across the region. It matters to have a member in government. Windsor-Tecumseh-Lakeshore has proven that, and we're poised to do it again.
Taras, has the NDP been putting as much attention on Windsor-Tecumseh-Lakeshore this time with the need to defend Windsor-West?
Yeah, I think, we are running full campaigns in all the regions, and we have a tremendous candidate in Windsor-Tecumseh, Alex Ilioski. He is a public sector worker, a 911 dispatcher. And, you think about that job in the most strenuous moments of someone's life. Who's on the other line to answer that call? And so Alex comes to the job of, presenting as a candidate with someone who can handle that stress, someone who is a source of calm and clarity in a time of disruption. And I've met him. He's a wonderful person. He is dedicated to public service. And that's the type of quality and caliber of candidates that we're putting forward as an alternative to the Liberals and the Conservatives in every region across the country. So I'm really proud of his campaign and proud to see him put his name forward, and we'll see how it goes. It is difficult to go up against incumbents. We know that in every region in the province, so we'll see.
Al, the Conservatives have won the riding provincially the past 2 elections. How much of that momentum do you see translating to the federal race?
I think Andrew Dowie is an absolute superstar in Windsor-Tecumseh-Lakeshore as MPP. And we just had a provincial election. The correlation between people voting PC and CPC usually is about 90%. Maybe now it's about 85%. But we just had that momentum. Windsor-Tecumseh-Lakeshore is up for grabs for Kathy Borelli. She's a friend of mine, as is her husband, Paul, former city councillor. Kathy's a great community leader. She was the candidate of record. She ran in 2021. If you look at the results of 2021, with just 3 weeks, she came in a little bit late. With just 3 weeks, she was at 27%. And Liberals were at 30, so 3-point difference. But the big thing was the PPC was at 10%, running by Victor Green. Victor Green now is completely has endorsed the Conservative Party. He's in with the Conservative Party. He's taking his people, maybe like 1,500 people, with him. And, a lot of the PPC, they like Pierre. They're coming home back to the big blue tent. I mentioned that before. So I think she's got a terrific shot, and she's working very hard out there.
The trade war feels like it's sort of cooled off over the past couple of weeks, which has allowed some other issues to be discussed. I want to ask you this morning what non-Trump related issue you hope leaders will work on to drive home in these final days. Alicia, let's start with you.
I really think that a post-COVID reality means we have to face the real issue of mental health and addictions, and I don't think that is a thing that needs to only be in place when there's no tariffs and no Trump. Those are real things that are affecting real people, and I would have liked the space in this election to have talked to the leaders and to have seen leaders in the community rally around real holistic ideas about how we can surround Canadians with the things that they need to support mental health, youth, and to kind of really think about how we can push this country forward in the ways that they need.
Al, what about you? What non-Trump related issue do you want people to focus on?
Simple change. And change is really what this election is about. The Liberals and the NDP, to some point, even because they had propped up the Liberals, want to just keep saying the new threat. Forget about the last 10 years. It's the new threat. We need to focus. We have Mark Carney. Give me a break. Okay, the same policies, the same ministers, the same Liberal government. Mark Carney can't do it all by himself. You heard Lisa Raitt actually on CTV. She just pointed out just so beautifully. At the end of the day, if the last 10 years was not a success, and it wasn't from every economic standpoint, we were the lowest in the G7 on GDP, what can you really expect differently? As long as our pipelines and our minerals are still in the ground and it's a resistance for resource and you can't sell to the world, we're dependent on the United States. It's not actually doing well to negotiate with Donald Trump to begin with. But as far as the Liberal record, we need change. We need policies that work. We need to go back to what was successful, which was the Harper government. And if we go back to that, that's the change. If that's the ballot box question and momentum goes there, we win.
And Taras, what do you want to say about this?
Yeah, so I mean, there are a continuation of issues that we'll always need to work on, and one is the expansion of healthcare, an expansion of coverage through national pharmacare that was brought in by pressure from the NDP is going to provide relief for those in need the most in this country, and the marginalized people that can't make ends meet more and more each and every day. Also, affordability issues, whether we have an imminent trade war happening or not. We know life was getting more expensive for everyday Canadians prior to Trump coming in, and I can't imagine that that's going to end. We need government oversight on companies that are taking advantage of consumers in every respect, whether it's telecoms or food or other services. So that we need someone who's looking out for taxpayers in that regard and Canadians. And New Democrats have always been there to point out who is suffering and who needs help the most.
I want to spend some time talking about each of your parties and why people should vote that way going into the ballot box. Taras, I'm going to stay with you. Why vote NDP when we know that they're they're not going to be forming government?
Look, we show up. We're there. We're there for debates locally. You get to hear from us. We are representative. We are open, transparent, and accountable to our actions and to our policies. That's who New Democrats are. We're very clear about who we are fighting for and why we're fighting for, and it's very clear why we need a New Democratic Party in Canada. It's a party that has brought about some of the most transformative policies that we have as a country. You only have to look at our universal healthcare system as one of the pillars, most highly regarded system around the world. It truly identifies us as Canadians. The willingness to support each other at our most vulnerable is what gives us such high regard in the country or on the planet. Really, I mean, so you can count on New Democrats to continue to have laser focus on the things and the priorities that people need, and that's why we should re-elect New Democrats.
Alicia, you spoke a lot today about the voting record, so I'm going to turn that back around and ask why the Liberal Party should continue governing in the next 4 years.
I think what we've seen is a real shift here in the party toward the center, which is, I think, overwhelmingly where Canadians are. They want a party that represents positive change, and I know that this Liberal Party under Mark Carney is the right thing to do. And regardless of any of that, there is a real and present danger here that we have with Donald Trump and with tariffs. And we can say that we've moved beyond it, only it is a sleeping giant in the room. And if that sleeping giant is there, then I want a trusted economist who's there, who's released a platform that is responsive to real Canadian need, and speaks to those things that are nation building and our real investments that Canadians are making in our own future. He actually understands what that is. He knows how to actually build those books, and he actually knows how to release a platform that is speaking to Canadians about the time that we're in and the time that we need to build forward. And I think we do that with our local candidates. We've seen how that's possible when we're in government, and I think that the nation needs a strong, steady leadership like Mark Carney and like the Liberals to carry us through this time and into the future.
And now Conservatives are, they say that that's a protest vote, that this sends a message and a need for change. What's your response to that?
My response in all questions on this topic is we need to vote Conservative. We need a new government in Ottawa. We need Conservatives locally in Windsor-West, Essex, Windsor-Tecumseh-Lakeshore. As far as the NDP, it really matters the effectiveness and their ability in Ottawa. If they're not party status, if they're not part of government, it makes a difference on their influence. As far as the Liberals, again, same policies, same MPs, same ministers. Mark Carney was the advisor to Justin Trudeau. You can't overlook that. I don't think Canadians are going to forget that and just say, hey, look at Donald Trump. Besides that, Pierre would be the best to negotiate with Donald Trump. Trump went on record saying he wants to negotiate with Liberals because they both want to tax Canadians. If you keep our resources in the ground, you don't make Canada wealthier. You don't make Canada have the ability to be competitive and sell our resources elsewhere. So in every aspect, we need Pierre Poilievre as the Prime Minister. We need the Conservative government. We need representation here, and things will be much better, more affordable, and we'll go back to the Canada we know and love.
I want to thank you all for coming in again. Teshuba with the Conservatives, Taras Natyshak with the NDP, and Alicia Higgison with the Liberals.